everyone, it's Dianne at Minerva. I hope you're all having a super week. And today I'm going to share with you a sew along for this wonderful McCall's dress, 7349, or the Chloe by McCall's. And we're going to be making a view A today. So as you can see, there are different views that you can make of this dress, different lengths, and of course you can make it with or without the sleeves. So we're making the sleeveless version right here. And what we're going to be using today is a beautiful Minerva exclusive Ponte Roma double stretch knit. This one is called Meadow Glee. As you can see, it has a lovely flower design and a nice bright white background. So it's a really pretty fabric. Wash and prepare that fabric before we begin. And of course, take your pattern and a tape measure and check your sizing. When you're sure of the perfect fit, we're going to go and cut our pattern pieces together. So let's go and do that now. Here we have the pieces for our dress. So here we have the front. This piece you're going to cut it on the fold. The fold line is here. Make a note of the markings. So the notches, the markings here. And you can also lengthen or shorten at the double line indicated. Here we have the side front. The straight grain is this way. This time you're going to cut two pieces, cut them as a pair. Make sure that you note your markings and again lengthen or shorten at this point here. Here we have the back. Again, you're going to cut this piece on the fold. So the fold line is here. Make a note of your markings. The side back, the straight grain is this way. Cut two pieces, note your markings. Here we have the sleeve for views A and E. So this looks like a sleeveless version, but it is a small cap sleeve really. So here we are with the sleeve. This is a straight grain. We're going to cut two pieces. Note these triangles here, the markings. Here we have the band. This piece we're going to cut it on the fold. The fold line is here and this piece is for around the neck. So now we're ready to begin making our dress. First of all, you want to wind half of your thread onto your machine spool. And of course, check your machine needle. So today I'm using a ballpoint needle size 80. So we do need to use a stretch, so a jersey or a ballpoint needle for this fabric because of the amount of stretch that's contained in it. So do test this on a piece of scrap before you begin sewing and see what works best for you. Then when you've done that, we're going to take our front piece of our dress and we're going to stair stitch down the front edges. So that's where that side panel meets here. So let's begin. So here is my front piece, and first of all we're going to stair stitch down the sides. So we have our markings here, look, and here on both sides. So we're going to stair stitch between these markings and we do this at 1.3 centimetres from the raw edge here. So it's within the seam line and the seams are 1.5 on this particular pattern. You want to make sure that you're using a stretch or zigzag stitch on this material with it being stretchy. So I'm using a zigzag stitch on mine. You might want to play around with this on yours. Make it smaller, adjust the length of the width and so on. See what works best. Now we're going to take our side front piece and we're going to pin it to the front like this. So we want to make sure that we line up the markings. So we have our markings here where we've just stair stitched and we want to pin that in place. And I find it's best if you do this first of all before you pin the rest of it, because we want to make sure that that curve sort of fits just there. So pin your notches first of all before trying to make that fit. And now we can just ease it in. Now add as many pins as you need because sometimes it can be tricky going around the curve. We don't want any lumps or bumps. And then when you've done that, pin it the rest of the way down the dress, making sure that you don't stretch it out anywhere. And once we've done that, we're going to stitch that seam in place. Make sure that you have your stretch stitch or your zigzag stitch on your machine. Now once you've stitched this seam, you're going to go over it again. So we're double stitching the seam. So the reason that we're doing this is because it's a stretchy pull-on dress. Now if you don't do this, sometimes you might find you get snap stitches. So it's just a bit of extra security with it being a stretchy fabric. So double stitch the seam for extra strength. Now if you have a triple stretch stitch, you probably won't need to do the double stitching of the seams, but not everybody has that on their machine. Now you can also overlock your seams if you wish, and then press the seams towards the front. This fabric doesn't fray, so you don't need to do this step, but it does look sort of finished on the inside if you do this. So that is entirely up to you. Now you're going to take your back piece and you're going to stay stitch above the waist edge. So from the marking here down to just above the waist edge on both sides in the same way that you did your front piece. So 1.3 centimeters away from the raw edge. Now you're going to take your side back and pin it to your back piece at the sides like this. Again, matching the notches. So again, do this first of all and pin it the rest of the way down the side back. Again, we're going to stitch this in place with a 1.5 centimeter seam allowance, and we can also double stitch this seam. Remember, the double stitching is optional and it is for added security and added strength on that seam. Stitch this in place now and repeat on the other side. Now pin your front to your back at the side seams like this. So we want to make sure that we line up these notches here and that we're not pulling on it anywhere, that it all just goes to it naturally. Because sometimes if you pull it out of place, you can end up with the front longer than the back. So just take care that you do pin it carefully first of all. Stitch in place with a 1.5 centimeter seam allowance and then double stitch the seam if you wish. Now bring right sides together on your sleeve like this. So this is the underarm seam just here. We're going to stitch it with a 1.5 centimeter seam allowance and then stitch it again in a double seam. When you've done this, you can edge finish it if you wish and then press that seam towards the back. Repeat on the other side. Now sew the sleeve hem with a narrow double hem. Alternatively, you could overlock it and just turn it over once. Now pin your neckband right sides facing to your neck. So if you line up the seam at the centre back, find the centre back by folding it in half, but you could have done this when you cut your pattern pieces. That's when I tend to do it. But you've also got a mark either side here and here of the centre back. And then pull it so that it's folded in half like this, and also mark with a pin the centre front of your band and line that up with the centre front of your dress like this. You'll have to pull on it a little to make it go to the neckline, just a little. Pin it all the way around and stitch in place. Now from the right side, you're going to flip that band so that band's to the outside and the seam is on the inside facing downwards. And we're going to catch that in place by stitching around the neckline with a top stitch. Now we're going to hem the bottom of our dress. So with a 1.5 centimeter hem, you can either do a double fold, so a small double fold like we did on the sleeves, but because this is ponte and this is the hem, I've decided to overlock mine and we're just going to turn that up. So I've taken a little bit off with the overlocker. I'm going to turn it up and I'm going to stitch it, and I'm going to do that from the right side. So you may wish to pin it first of all, but you can feel it through the fabric. So I made a 10. I'm now thinking I probably could have gone down a size below. But then we do want a certain amount of ease, don't we? So it's up to you how snug you actually want it. If you want it really snug, you might want to just adjust slightly and size down just a little, but that is a nice fit as it is. Well, I hope you've enjoyed sewing along with me today. I think this is a really lovely dress. It works really well with this ponte. So whether you want to go for this gorgeous print that I've used today, or maybe a solid, it'd work well with either. You can make the longer line version or change up the sleeves for added details. Please let us know in the comments below what you've been making. Remember to include any photographs because we do love to see them. You can take a look at the Minerva Craft Club if you'd like to get 10% off all your orders for a whole year. And of course, create a free online account with us to join in with our wonderful worldwide sewing community. That's all from me for today, but I hope to be back soon with more sewing inspiration for you. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.